Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. 34 lives were brutally taken and over 100 people were injured in a relentless attack orchestrated by Russia on unsuspecting civilians celebrating the Palm Sunday. This is the most brutal attack in a series of assaults seen after Russian officials vowed to cease brutalities on Ukrainian civilians. More on that in just a moment, but before we continue, the latest headlines. Turkish foreign minister weighs in on peace efforts following a heated exchange between his Ukrainian and Russian counterparts. Budapest sees a new wave of anti-government demonstrations as opposition party Tisza leads in the polls. Palm Sunday celebrations take over Poland, marking the beginning of Holy Week. We begin our service with the latest from Ukraine. On Palm Sunday, the northeastern city of Sumy was devastated by a massive rocket strike. At least 34 people were killed, including children, in one of the deadliest assaults in weeks. And as relentless attacks on Ukraine continue, Ukrainian and American diplomats are doubling down on efforts to finalize the critical minerals deal. To talk us through the latest developments, let's go live to Kyiv to our Ukraine correspondent, Oz Katerji. Hello, Oz. So we've heard about the attack, one of the deadliest in weeks. Can you tell us more about what happened?
The deadliest attack of 2025, a Russian ballistic missile hit Sumy, the city of Sumy, in the region of Sumy in northern Ukraine, killing at least 34 people and wounding at least 117, although that number has been rising throughout the day. President Zelensky condemned the attack as soon as it happened, saying only scoundrels act like this, taking the lives of ordinary people. He also released a video statement earlier on Sunday. Let's take a listen to what he had to say in that.
As of now, 34 people have been confirmed dead. My condolences to all relatives and friends. It was 2 Russian missiles. The first hit a university building. The second exploded directly over the street. A total of 117 people were wounded, including children, with a baby girl born in 2025. Wars end only when the crimes of war are not forgotten and when there is pressure on the aggressor. Unfortunately, this is not happening now. It's been 1 month since Russia rejected the American proposal for a full and unconditional ceasefire. They feel no fear, and that's why we see ballistic missiles and nearly 100 strikes, most of them Shaheds.
Now, world leaders and senior US officials were among those who weighed in with their outrage following the news of this attack. Keith Kellogg, the US Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, was among them, as was French President Emmanuel Macron. Let's take a listen to those statements.
The Russian version of a ceasefire, Bloody Palm Sunday. Today's Palm Sunday attack by Russian forces on civilian targets in Sumy crosses any line of decency. There are scores of civilian dead and wounded. As a former military leader, I understand targeting, and this is wrong. It is why President Trump is working hard to end this war. This morning, 2 Russian missiles struck the heart of the city of Sumy in Ukraine, causing numerous civilian casualties, including children, once again. Everyone knows this war was initiated by Russia alone, and today it is clear that Russia alone chooses to continue it. With blatant disregard for human lives, international law, and the diplomatic efforts of President Trump. Strong measures are needed to impose a ceasefire on Russia. France is working tirelessly towards this goal alongside its partners. To the victims, the wounded, and all of Ukraine that continues to resist, our solidarity, our respect, our unwavering commitment.
Well, those words will be warmly accepted by the Ukrainian government, but the main message Zelensky has reiterated on Sunday is without pressure on the aggressor, peace is impossible. Talks have never stopped ballistic missiles and aerial bombs.
Oz, let's also touch upon the minerals deal. Any progress on the negotiations? Are we getting closer to some sort of a resolution? And most importantly, will Ukraine have it their way?
Well, we certainly understand that talks are ongoing as to whether they've reached any sort of tangible progress or whether Ukraine thinks this deal is fair or satisfactory for them to sign. That's still unclear. Donald Trump, however, seems pretty pleased with the way things are going. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I'll give you that answer on Monday. It'll be very specific on Monday. But we're taking in a lot of money. As a country, we're taking in a lot of money.
So Ukraine's in a difficult position with this mineral deal going forward. What it crucially needs is support, ongoing support from the United States, including military support, particularly in the air defense department. Patriot missiles, they're made in the United States. It's a US system. It's really important for Ukraine going forward. They will want a commitment from Donald Trump's White House to continued military support in exchange for signing any deal. As it stands, from the drafts that we have seen, no such agreement is on paper. So the Ukrainians will keep pushing for that, and they will keep citing events like Sunday's attack, brutal attack on Palm Sunday, as evidence for why they need continued support from the United States, Claudia.
Thank you so much. That was Oz Kataji reporting live from Kyiv. Meanwhile, in Antalya, Turkey, tensions ran high at the Diplomacy Forum. And to no surprise, just a day before the deadly strike in Sumy, Ukrainian and Russian foreign ministers exchanged accusations over breaches of the ceasefire, particularly targeting energy infrastructure. On Sunday, following the heated exchange, Turkey's foreign minister weighed in on the peace process, carefully avoiding any mention of Russia's role in the latest attack. Our correspondent in Antalya, Kazimierz Wysiak, has more.
During the third and final day of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan was very careful to be brief about the war in Ukraine.
As you know, President Erdogan believes that any kind of contribution towards peace should be made, and he has a strong will to achieve this. We are working on this, both as a Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as other institutions.
And it was Saturday's guests who grabbed most of the attention here in Antalya, as both Ukrainian and Russian foreign ministers attended separate discussion panels. Ukrainian Minister Andriy Sybiha spoke about the intensity of Russian strikes in recent days, which in light of the Sunday morning attack on Sumy rings even stronger.
Russia escalated terror and fighted, I have statistics with me, and fighted almost 70 missiles, over 2,000, 2,000 Shahid drones, and over 6,000 guided aerial bombs and Ukraine, mostly at civilians. This clearly shows to the world who wants peace and who wants war.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in turn complained about the alleged Ukrainian attacks on Russian energy targets, which, if true, would be a violation of the partial ceasefire brokered by the United States. Sunday's morning attack in Sumy, however, truly speaks volumes about Russia's true intentions on the war and the peace process. From Antalya Diplomacy Forum, I'm Kazimierz Wysiak.
The tide seems to be shifting in Hungary. According to recent polls, the opposition party Tisza is leading against Viktor Orbán's Fidesz. In response to growing public dissatisfaction with the government, thousands took to the streets of Budapest on Sunday in a powerful show of resistance against current Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Sonia Gatabiscan has this next report.
This is not the first time that Péter Magyar, a leader of Hungary's opposition party Tisza, has mobilized people onto the streets. Although Prime Minister Viktor Orbán may still be the face of Budapest, a recent poll shows Tisza leading against Orbán's ruling Fidesz party. The result is in line with Tisza's success in rallying large crowds to participate in their questionnaire.
The fact that Tisza could get more than 1 million answers to that question it shows that the people are turning from Fidesz to the opposition.
The questionnaire covered a variety of topics from VAT reductions on medicine to whether Hungary should remain an EU and NATO member, and even assessing if Ukraine should join the EU. However, that is not to say that Tisza is politically the polar opposite of Fidesz.
At this moment, it's not clear if Tisza it's a liberal party or a conservative one. Tisza is trying to avoid any topic which is dividing the country.
Tisza has been dodging discussions about Ukraine and has not opposed Hungary's parliament march vote to ban pride. However, the protesters have not held back, dressing in grey on Saturday as a sarcastic defiance of colors and diversity.
Look at all these people here now, all dressed in grey, a perfect display of what sameness looks like. Do we actually want this?
If we can make something funny that power insists on treating with deadly seriousness, then that becomes a kind of antidote. Humor exposes the absurd. Gray is cool now. Gray is the new rainbow.
Experts attribute Orbán's declining popularity to growing public dissatisfaction with the rising cost of living. The past year alone has seen a 7.1% increase in food prices. Tisza, on the other hand, focuses on possible economic solutions to these issues, a stance seemingly appreciated by a growing number of Hungarians. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabishchan.
Sunday marked 85th anniversary of the Katyn massacre, where Polish officers were deceived and executed by Soviet forces. This day also serves as a moment of remembrance for all the victims of the Soviet oppression and a grim reminder that Moscow's aggression lives on today as Russia continues to oppress and target its neighbors, conducting a full-scale assault on Ukraine. Konrad Gorlinski has this report.
Today, we commemorate the 85th anniversary of when our supposed allies against the Nazis, the Russians, under the orders of Joseph Stalin, began executing thousands of Polish POWs, officers, soldiers, as well as intellectuals and teachers and anyone who they deemed too stubborn to assimilate into the new Russian order. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk attended Sunday's event and laid a wreath at the memorial to the victims.
Today we cannot remain silent. The sacrifice of 20,000 officers, sub-officers, Polish men, Polish women, the elite of the Polish nation. This sacrifice is a resounding lesson, not only of history, but a lesson that we must listen to with particular gravity today.
The Prime Minister also paid his condolences to those who lost their lives in Ukraine Sunday, in places like Sumy, where civilians were attacked while on a procession for Palm Sunday Mass.
But their deaths were inflicted just as tragically. This is the same evil, so senseless, so merciless. This evil remains tangible and visible, and it has been for centuries. It's still a threat. It still threatens us. It threatens our neighbors. It threatens peace, and it's something that we feel more acutely every month here in Poland and in Europe.
A number of representatives of Poland's allies who attended the event also shared Prime Minister Donald Tusk's concerns.
We are very proud to be here right now, and we really feel what Poland think about Katyn, how they feel it, because as a small state we also suffered the severe deportations and other atrocities from Soviet regime.
Over the years, the commemoration of the Katyn massacre came to include all those who were murdered across Soviet territory in the years during the war and beyond. They also make sure to remind us that the truth of these senseless deaths was hidden from the world for so long.
The object was, Stalin's object was to decapitate Polish society by removing anybody who could be classed as a leader or a person of influence. And of course, there's another element, that the crime was hidden, not just by the Soviets, but after the war, it was an inconvenient truth for most Western democracies and for all Poland's former allies.
Next to the memorial stand both the new Katyn and Polish military museums. They're here to make sure that the memory of those who gave up their lives is never forgotten.
We have now freedom. We have very nice country, our Poland. And we have to remember who gave something which is the most important, own life, for this aim.
Remembering all those who perished in the Katyn forest in 1940, as well as all others who died during the Soviet regime. I'm Konrad Gorlinski, reporting for TVP World.
Sunday, April 13th, marked Palm Sunday, a major Christian celebration that saw crowds gather in churches across the country. The day marks the beginning of the Holy Week, filled with color and tradition, with many Poles holding it in high regard. Zuzanna Jurek attended the celebrations and has more on why the custom is so important to many.
This Sunday marks a very special day for many Christians around the world, and it's one of the most important days within the liturgical calendar. The Palm Sunday, which marks and commemorates the entrance of Jesus into Jerusalem. As he made his journey on a donkey, he was greeted by his supporters who were waving olive branches and palm tree leaves as a sign of respect. Now, despite the passage of time, for many Christians around the world, including here in Warsaw, the day holds a very special meaning.
It's a tradition I've always cherished. It grounds me, but at the same time, every year feels like a new beginning and brings a deep sense of hope for this spring and for this beautiful Easter season. Especially in this community where traditions are upheld on such a large scale. You can really feel it, and it gives you a burst of springtime energy. For me, Palm Sunday is truly special. It's a time of waiting for something to be born, for something that brings hope for a better tomorrow, for something unexpected to happen.
The celebration of Palm Sunday dates to the 4th century, when it became traditional and customary to consecrate palm branches. Traditionally in Poland, since the 11th century, this was initially done by the symbolism, or willow branches were used in the place of traditional palm branches. But of course, time have also changed, and since then, traditional tree branches have been replaced by very colorful displays that we've observed here today. These include ribbons and papers, as well as some traditional elements, including branches, flowery arrangements, and seeds. Now, in the past, Palm Sunday also combined Christian and folk traditions. It was believed that the consecrated willow trees or willow branches would bring good luck upon leaving the church. The churchgoers would bring the consecrated willow branches back home and touch other people within their homes, within their communities with them. It was believed that not only would it bring strength, prosperity, and good luck, it also had many health benefits. Now, however, Christians have moved away from the folk elements of today's celebration, instead focusing primarily on the religious meaning of it all, meaning the day marks the end of Lent and the very beginning of the Easter celebrations, which are just around the corner. So in a few short days, or especially in exactly a week, Christians everywhere will remember and mark the death and then the resurrection of Jesus over 2,000 years ago. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Thousands of Hungarians opposing the rule of Viktor Orbán and his Fidesz party have yet again taken the streets of Budapest. Peter Magyar's Tisza is leading in the polls, pointing to a possible shift in the balance of power. But is the social movement and momentum going to bring a change that could sway the pendulum and see an end of Viktor Orbán's rule after the next parliamentary elections set to take place in April of 2026? Or perhaps the country is already in the event horizon of Russia. Joining me now is Bogdan Guralczyk, former ambassador and professor at the University of Warsaw, an expert on the subject of Hungary and its political history, with a particular focus on Viktor Orbán's phenomenon. Good evening, Professor. Thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
So we've seen great many protests take place in Hungary, but we've seen another one take place today. What's the significance of today's events?
Hungary is divided, fragmented. and there is no one united society. Partially, we have the believers of Orbán regime, and already for more than 1 year, we have a new phenomenon, quite new, which is Tisza party, which in Hungarian Tisza, Respect and Freedom Party, which organized a kind of a referendum, national referendum, which was taking part in last month. And tonight, this afternoon, we see the pictures right now on the screen. There was a mass demonstration to finalize the questionnaire, because altogether there were 12 questions raised by the Tisza party, concerning mainly social issues, but 2 questions were absolutely political ones. For instance, how many terms should Prime Minister be in office? And it was suggested just 2 terms, it means 8 years. And how much is the salary, which is a question because Hungary, like it or not, is the most corrupted country in the European Union. And this was the finalization of this event. More than 1 million people participated. Maybe not tremendous success for 9.5 million of inhabitants of Hungary. However, it is once again confirmation that Péter Magyar, who is the leader of this party, is something which is a real political challenge towards Viktor Orbán, which is a new situation in Hungary after 15 years already of Viktor Orbán regime. And this is intriguing because in recent public opinion polls in Hungary, Tisza is ahead of Fidesz. That means that ahead of Viktor Orbán's party. We will see what will happen. We still have 1 year to the next elections, but one thing needs to be raised as well, that Viktor Orbán, since March 2020, since the beginning of the pandemic, is ruling by the decrees. And what more, a month ago, the parliament confirmed that he can rule as long as he wish. So it is prolonged rule by decree. And we will see what will be the final result, probably in next year at that time.
So if you were to break down, what's so particular about Magyar and Tisza that swayed people as the opposition party to join in the protest?
Well, Hungary is a leader in the European Union in 2 respects. And it is the most corrupted country in the European Union, confirmed by all available data. And Hungary, unfortunately, has the highest inflation rate also in the European Union. And of course, inflation, it means very expensive products in the shops. And the people are realizing that what Viktor Orbán was promising is not fulfilled totally. On the other hand, Péter Magyar is we see him right now on the screen. He is very successful to promote the idea that it is the most corrupted government, the most corrupted leadership, and also administration. And the people realize that something is in. Initially, for more than a decade, Viktor Orbán was enormously popular. Right now, everyone realized that he was fighting especially for himself and for his family. He centralized power. he monopolized also the wealth, which means that everything is going to his hands and his acolytes, his colleagues, and we have nothing else but oligarchy ruling Hungary right now. And that's why people are supporting Peter Magyar and his party.
So if Hungarians were to vote Fidesz and Orbán out, would the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, allow democracy to actually take its course? And would he give up his power, or should we expect some other scenarios to take place?
I doubt very much in normal voting. As I mentioned, Viktor Orbán is ruling by decrees, and he can rule by decrees 1 year more, or nobody knows for how long. And also he has all power in his hands, political power, economic power, also the uniforms power, if I may say so. That means the army, police, and so on and so on. And he will not give up because he is ruling by himself. This is one-man show. This is one-man rule, what Hungary is right now. That's why he will be fighting, and he is extremely experienced. This is also a very important factor. So we will see what will happen on domestic scene in Hungary. However, I suppose more important than the domestic scene is external situation, namely Donald Trump and the situation on the global markets, which is, as we know, turbulent and shaky. So it is extremely difficult to predict anything at this moment, because we are surprised by the events even next day. Every morning hours we are waking up and we have a new situation which has an impact for any country, and Hungary is especially vulnerable in this respect.
So very shortly, because I know that our time on the program is coming to an end, but what's next for Budapest? Let's say that the scenario that you mentioned just a second ago does not take place, and the voting takes place, Tisza wins, Fidesz loses. What happens in the event that the government would change in terms of the country's relationship with Russia?
Peter Magyar, we didn't say anything about that. He is turning back Hungary towards Brussels, European Union, and Western Alliance. The problem is, so definitely Peter Magyar will not cooperate with Russia. He went to Ukraine. He was even in Bucha, the place of the massacre, which Viktor Orbán will never come to his mind to go there. However, we will see what will be the international situation at that time next year, because Viktor Orbán is proudly announcing so-called peacock dance, that he has very good personal contact with Mr. Putin, with Mr. Xi Jinping, and Donald Trump at the same time. But how to survive in good cooperation with Donald Trump when you have the biggest Chinese investment on the territory of his country? So we will see what will happen. The situation, like everywhere, is extremely dynamic, but the winning of the Tisza party means back to Europe, back to European integration, for sure.
Just as you mentioned, Professor, a lot is changing when it comes to the international scene. So we might find ourselves in April of 2026 in a completely different position from now. Professor Bogdan Guralczyk, former ambassador and professor at the University of Warsaw, was my guest. Thank you so much for joining, Professor.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features.